deadliest factory accident. 146 women killed. Make the Ash Building company pay for what they did. There was a Saturday evening in spring in New York, like today, where there is a young woman like Margaret and others, young women like teenagers of 14 years old in a factory. They're immigrants, they don't know English language, and they are here to be able to have a job that will obtain to their dreams. In this Saturday, in the 8th floor, there was a fire, the deadliest fire in New York City in labor factory. There were bad conditions, poor condition of working. Like this, there are overcrowded space. There are 8 rows with a very loud machines, and there was only one fire escape, like this. This young woman doesn't speak English. They are immigrants. They are very unprotected. There were no laws that covered this. And there was elements that propitiates a deadly factory accident. There was a fire escape in this area where the door is closed. The factory have a policy of theft that will be checked, the backpacks. And that's the reason, because these doors are closed. There was just one elevator in use in that moment. And there is no key in this area for open the door of escape. These young women are like us, mothers, sisters, daughters, that have been in this workplace because they want to achieve their dreams. She doesn't know English, so don't know what fire escape means. There was no escape when the fire is here. In these conditions, in the workplace, we are safety, we are poor, we are sweet, and the crowd of the machines, that's much elements that's probably an accident and a fire that take place on this Saturday evening. There are 6 days of work days, and witness, critical thinking, analyze the facts that will be present right there in this case, and you will decide that the Ash Building pay for what they did.
Thank you.
Immigrant shirtwaist factory owners. Dreams went up in smoke. Restore their dream. Isaac Harris and Max Planck saw everything they worked so hard for burning up in flames and vanishing in front of their own eyes. Between chaos, smoke, and desperation, They helped everyone they physically could out of that faulty building. They felt the pain and hopelessness of everyone that was around them. When were they going to get rescued? With smoke filling up their lungs, they saw fear in their own children's eyes. They did everything that they could do, but they were left all alone. The business management failed them. The fire department failed them. On March 25th of 2017, Isaac and Max, they lost friends. They lost the means of providing not only for their families, but for the families of hundreds depending on them. They lost their dream. Let me tell you a little bit about Isaac and Harris and Max Planck. They were both born in Russia, and they came to the United States looking for better opportunities. They came chasing the American dream. Isaac had experience tailoring, so he found himself working in sweatshops. Max became a salesman. They met through their wives. With similar backgrounds and working in a similar industry, they quickly became friends and eventually partners. They founded the Triangle Waste Company. They rented the 9th floor of the Ash Building that is located in the corner of Washington Square in the Greenwich Village. And with the company growing so quickly, then they rented the 8th floor and then the 10th floor. This was not a sweatshop. This was not a dark-looking factory. This was a modern factory in a high-rise building with state-of-the-art technology. This was a very desirable job. They became the largest manufacturers of blouses in New York. But seeing their success, others began to copy their formula. They became very wary about the competition because they knew that competition meant less profit, less sales, and this could eventually mean letting go of employees. They didn't want that because they knew how hard you have to work as an immigrant to provide for your family. So what did they do? They implemented some security measures, like for example, they prohibited smoking inside of the building because they were working with very flammable materials. But ignoring this measurement, an employee decided to smoke inside of the building. On March 25, 2017, Isaac and Max came into work just like any other day. But that day, they came into work with their kids. They went about their day, just like any other day, and then an employee decided to smoke and a fire started. With flames and smoke filling up the floors, they tried everything they could to get people out, to get their kids out. Eventually, they got up to a roof and escaped to the next building. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today, at the end of this trial, you will see that Max Planck and Isaac Harris worked so hard for this factory that they put everything they had to it, and they did everything they could do to protect it. At the end of this trial, we will ask you to come back with a verdict of no liability. We ask you to not punish them for something that they did not do.
Chrissy, take a picture of the 3 exhibits.
I don't have
Point the camera. Point the camera.
Yeah, you can flatten it out. Okay, maybe we just have to get them to stand up.
Hazardous working conditions. 147 young women killed. Make the Ash Corporation pay. It was a beautiful morning of March 27 of 2017. Ms. Margaret Swartz, a 24-year-old Hungarian immigrant, was getting ready for work as usual. She was following her American dream because she was now working in the Ash Building Corporation. Now, she was working at the biggest factory of shirtwaists in the city. The shirtwaist factory occupied floors 8, 9, and 10, and was owned by two guys known as the factory kings, the shirtwaist kings, I may say, Mr. Isaac Harris and Mr. Mark Blanc. Now, the problem was the conditions, or I may say the hazardous conditions, 500 workers had to endure in this fire hazardous environment. Let me show you what were those hazardous conditions these workers had to endure. For example, they had 240 sewing machines working 14 long hours for 6 days in a week. Can you imagine the heat generated by that amount of machines? Now also they have cluttered work spaces with 8 rows of long tables, long wooden tables, with also double stacks of chairs. Very limited space of workers could move. Also, as you can see, the fire escape sign wasn't written in the English language. Most of the employees were Jews or Italians, which not spoken the language. Also, as you can see, the fire escape was blocked by many of those tables. They also had dangerous conditions because the floor was filled with oil and rags of clothing that was clogging the workspace. They had only 2 exits of stairs available when the building code required 3. It was the Washington set of stairs that was locked because security conditions imposed by the employers required the employees to exit only through 1 set of doors. It was a fire trap. On the morning of March 25th of 2017, suddenly a fire outburst in the 8th floor, I may say. It quickly went up to the 9th floor. Employees tried to stop the fire, but there were no fire sprinklers and the hoses didn't work because there was no water pressure and they were rotten. Now, the employees didn't notify the 9th floor, and Margaret was getting ready to finish her shift. She had no news and the fire was already there. When she noticed smoke, fire was there, employees went chaotic, and as usual, they went to the green side of stairs because that was the exit they were used to go. Fire was there. Now, many employees decided to go where the fire escape was. They had to jump over the tables, but the fire escape collapsed because it was rusted away. 19 people died because that set of fire escape was rusty. Others, in desperation because fire was already overtaking them, jumping down the elevator shaft to their death. Other employees ran to the Washington side of stairs, but it was locked. Margaret went to that door. She tried the door, and it wouldn't open. Others there tried that door again, didn't open. Margaret died there. It was a fire trap. The rest of the remaining employees, in desperation, because flames were already there, jumped down 9 stories to their death. 146 people killed. Now, Sarah Collins was the last victim who succumbed to her wounds, but this was not the first time this incident occurred. 5 previous fires had occurred in the factory, and the owners did nothing to fix them. Now let me take you back in time to 2005, in the uprising of 20,000 employees that marched the streets for 6 weeks straight to fight for better conditions. And the kings of Shirtwaist factory did nothing. They even opposed the movement. And they did not fix the dangerous conditions these workers faced. Now, I'll ask you, the jury, to grant these victims and make their memory, don't erase the memory of 146 victims that were victims of these negligent conditions. Make Ash Builder Corporation pay for Greta, for Margaret, for Lorena. Award please award, I'm gonna ask you to award the victims $1 million per dead plaintiff, $500,000 per injured worker, and $5 million in damage for punitive damage, so this will never happen again.
Arriba. And someone to
Immigrant-owned company. Shirtwaist, fire, accident. Restore their dreams. Imagine how hard it must feel to leave your family behind and everything you love to come to a new country in search of a better life. Imagine the fear one must feel arriving in New York, one of 5,000 immigrants per day, all in search of the American dream. This is what Max Planck and Isaac Harris had to go through in order to live in the United States. Max Planck and Isaac Harris set all those feelings aside. They learned a new language, learned a new culture, and learned how to conduct business here in the United States. Isaac Harris was a tailor. Max Planck was a salesman. Isaac Harris and Max Planck met through their wives and worked hard, putting all their money in order to open the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory opened in the northwest corner of Washington Place and Green Street. It was a modern, high building with high ceilings and big windows. Isaac Harris and Max Planck rented the 8th, 9th, and 10th floor of this building. Isaac Harris and Max Planck decided on this building because it was fireproof. And the Ashcroft building, who took care of it, was the one who took care of the maintenance in the building. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was a modern factory with modern machines, and it was very famous for their shirtwaists. On March 25, on the early morning, Isaac Harris and Max Planck headed out to work. But unlike any other day, this day they brought their kids with them. Sometimes your jobs requires too much of your time and you have little time to spend with your families. Max Planck and Isaac Harris decided to bring their kids in order to be able to spend more time with their family members, especially since March is a heavy season for the fashion industry. Around 4:45 on that day, a negligent employee decided to smoke even though there was a prohibition in the company for smoking. This employee decided to light up a cigarette, and as she was finishing it, she dropped it on the floor. When it got to the floor, the cigarette got to the materials that had been used that day, and it burst the fire on the 8th floor, which would trap people on the 9th and on the 10th floor. Before anything happened, Isaac Harris and Max Planck had taken preventions if an emergency were to occur. Apart from renting what they thought to be a fireproof building from the Ashcroft Company, they also had firefighting equipment in each floor. They had fire systems to alert the firefighters on each floor. And they also had fire escapes in place with names and arrows to where they were supposed to go. Isaac Harris and Max Planck were on the 10th floor when they got news of the fire. They were with their kids and a few other employees. Isaac Harris and Max Planck quickly sprang into action, helping the people on that floor reach the roof and be safe. Isaac Harris and Max Planck separately alerted the fire department about the fire. Isaac Harris and Max Planck Isaac Harris took charge of the elevator, told the elevator man to take charge and take the girls to safety. Max Planck took the kids to the roof and made sure they were safe. Isaac Harris and Max Planck put their lives at risk to save as many employees as they could. The fire department was alerted multiple times. Their hoses did not reach the top floor, and their ladders barely reached the 6th floor. They only brought one net for a building that was for over 500 employees. They clearly were not ready to handle a disaster this big. At the end of this trial, I will come back to you and ask for a verdict of no liability. Please do not punish Isaac Harris and Max Blank for an accident they did not commit.
Please sit down.
Money-hungry factory owners. 146 women died. Make Ash Building Corporation pay. This is a case about 146 young women and children. Women and children who were fresh to America, chasing their American dream, just like Margaret Schwartz. Many of these people came to America to seek a better life for themselves and for their families. They took this job to try to provide for their families, to send money home back to their families abroad. I want you to imagine Margaret and many of these other women. They thought that they had a safe working condition at the Triangle Shirtwaist Company. But it was anything but safe. In fact, it was a death trap. During this trial, we will show you why the defendants should be held liable for the unsafe working conditions. Some of the unsafe working conditions are as here. When they walked into the building, they used the elevator over on the Green Street side. There was 2 sets of stairs that you're going to hear about today. The Green Street and the Washington Place. In the building, there was very overcrowded spaces with hazardous working conditions surrounding all of these women. As you can see, there was rows and rows filling the floor to overcapacity. In addition, there was one single fire escape. But this fire escape was written in English, and many of these Jewish young women couldn't read English, as you can see here. There was also oily floors spread throughout the entire building, or the entire floor, making it even more dangerous. There was also one single water pail for the whole floor, pictured here. There was also boxes crowding the exits, seen here. And as I mentioned, there's only 2 staircases. But in this situation, there needed to be a 3rd staircase. I want you to imagine the day of the fire. Margaret and her other co-workers came to work expecting a normal day. They arrived up to the 9th floor, ready to work. And by the end of the day, they were all ready to go home after a long 14-hour day. But they wouldn't be going home today. They wouldn't be seeing their families. They didn't even know to say goodbye that day. At the end of the day, they heard something that no one ever wants to hear. Fire. What's ensued after that? Chaos, panic, fear. Margaret and her co-workers run to an exit, seeking to get out, to be able to go home. They go to the Green Street exit, the staircase, but it doesn't open. They become panicked. Fear fills their bodies even more. They run to the other exit, or they run to the elevators, and the elevators do not open. So they run to Washington Place, seeking one last safe exit. But the door doesn't open. Margaret and her co-workers fall. Smoke fills the building, their lungs, and they gasp for their last air as smoke fills the room. At the end of this trial, we ask that you render a verdict of punitive damages.
Immigrants create company. Factory fire accident. Restore their dreams. Isaac Harrison and Max Planck met in the US in the early 1890s. They have a same history. Born in Russia, they came to America in the around 20 years old. Isaac was he uses his skills to work the garment industry. Max Planck, he was more like an entrepreneur. He rapidly started to buy scraps and use it to do other blouses. These two gentlemen meet in New York, like I said. Mr. Max Planck married a Russian immigrant in 25 years old, which was cousin with the Isaac Harrison's wife. That's how they met. In the early 1990s, they founded the Triangle Waist Shirt Company. The first company was in Woodstock Street. In the 1902, it was a hit, so they decided to move to a bigger building, and then decided to go to the Ash Building Corporation right here. They rent out the 8th floor, and as soon as 2 years, they have to expand, so they did that with the 7th floor, to the 9th floor, and then the 10th. These two gentlemen put everything they had to build this dream, their company. On Saturday 25th of 2017, around 5 in the afternoon, a fire occurred on the 8th floor. These two gentlemen work on the 10th floor. It was a normal day, but with the difference that this day they brought their children with them. At the scream of fire, these two gentlemen quickly ran to the 10th floor, to the top of the floor, to the top of the building, and tried to help as much as employees as they could. You can see them here with all the employees, which were over 500 employees, which they took care of them, making them less competitive pay, and trying to make them good, make a great company for them. This was a very advanced company. They had new machinery, all the latest technology. But the Ash Building failed them. They said that the building was fireproof, which it wasn't. As you can see on this picture, the fire department failed them as well. The ladders didn't go up to only until the 6th floor. The hoses didn't get to the 8th floor, which where the fire started. These two gentlemen also lost employees, family, and also friends this day. They were also victims in this fire. At the end of this trial, I will ask for a verdict of no liability to these two gentlemen right here, Mr. Isaac Harrison and Mass Blank. Don't make them pay for something they didn't do.
Immigrant factory owners. Fire, accident, chaos. Restore their dream. As a matter of fact, we are conscious about that the afternoon of the 25th of March of 2017, a very sad and surprisingly tragedy occurred right in the corner of Green Street and Washington Place Street, close to the Washington Square Park in New York City. Members of the jury, let me tell you something else about the today here defendants. Isaac Harris and Max Blank, they were Russian immigrants that came here to the United States with a really big dream. These two gentlemen, they were really diligent. They can be considered like dreamers. And they worked so hard here in the US to fulfill that dream that they accomplished. They developed a really successful company. They create the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Company. Mr. Blank and Mr. Harris were so worried also about the company and about the employees that were in that company and for them, that they did something different. They were the only ones in the New York City providing their employees a competitive and over the above salary in that time in the city, in comparison with other industry with similar businesses. Mr. Blank and Mr. Harris also was so worried about the safetyness and the security of their employees that they create and implement various norms and rules. Among these ones was the rule of no smoking inside the facility of the company. Was they also list the 8th, 9th, and 10th floor of the Ash building, a building that was considered as a fireproof building. They also create and implement a fire prevention plan in the company and a fire control plan in case of that emergency in the company. And they also make sure to put in every floor of their company an emergency telephone that can with the one that they can contact the fire department in case of necessary. Mr. Blank and Mr. Harris was so secure about that nothing gonna happen in the company that the afternoon of March 25th of 2017, they brought their children to the company. but their thought was wrong. That afternoon, an employee smoking in a clear violation of the norm of no smoking in the facility threw the still burned cigarette in a basket with flammable materials. And that employee created the fire in the 8th floor. And that fire rapidly spread to the other 2 floors. Mr. Blank and Mr. Harris take action really quick. They alert the other employees in the other 3 floors about the accident. And they also called the fire department with the emergency telephone that they installed in every floor of the company. And they, at the end, try to help the most that they can the other employees that was with them in that 10th floor. And they help them to escape. And after all, they do what every human being is gonna do in their situation. They try to escape, and they escape. And they save also the life of their children that was with them at that moment. Members of the jury, I ask you, don't you think that Mr. Blank and Mr. Harris can be considered like victims here? You don't have to ask this question. You don't have to answer this question. But at the moment that you decide and you analyze the evidence that you're going to be receiving here, please do it with the most sense of justice. Don't punish them for having a dream. And decide the case in a more just ways that can help them restore their dream back. Thank you.